We're going to turn our attention to positive emotions and the role that they play in your well-being and your resilience. But before we actually kind of look at positive emotions, we need to first of all look at negative emotions. These emotions evolved to help us to respond and be ready when we're at risk. This is going back over millions of years. So the benefits are survival. Negative emotions are designed to trigger particular kinds of action, fight, flight, even freeze, that are meant to help us survive. And that's how they came about. And I think this has been fairly common knowledge for a fairly long time. So there's nothing very new here. They evolved over thousands, if not millions of years, to help us react in particular ways. There's a pattern of behavior that goes with these negative emotions. The body goes into a state of arousal, hormones, neurotransmitters are all released to help you react quickly without having to think. So they trigger certain forms of behavior, and that helps us survive. But they're meant to be temporary. They're meant to resolve a situation. They're meant to peak and disappear. So it puts cortisol into your blood system, it puts adrenaline. None of these things were ever meant to stay in the system. But if the pressures of life, the uncertainties of life, the challenges of life are such that we are constantly aroused to a certain level, we are actually harming our bodies. So the disadvantage of these things, they help us deal quickly with the situation when we're at risk. That kind of response, readiness to attack or defend, is meant to be very, very short-lived. Real problems for us if we live with them over time. Nothing very new in that, but we've known that for a fairly long time. But what about positive emotions? Positive emotions do the opposite of negative. Whereas negative emotions close you down into a defensive mode, positive emotions do the opposite. They open you up. And above all, they indicate you're safe. The evolutionary purpose of positive emotions is you are safe. Because you're safe, you can be more open, receptive, collaborative, creative, because you know you're safe. So that's now what we think about positive emotions. The biological evolutionary purpose was that when you're not under threat, these emotions indicated things that you could be. It's safe to be collaborative, it's safe to be open, it's safe to be receptive to new ideas. You can see where this is leading, I'm sure, especially in the context of managing quite critical change that you're dealing with at the moment. So this summary says negative emotions tell us we are threatened in some way, whereas positive emotions tell us we're safe. Negative emotions lead to specific, narrow options of behavior. Fight or flight, rejection, and we survive. But positive emotions evolved in biological evolutionary terms, and we are more ready to notice patterns, we're more ready to broaden our options. And a theory is now evolving that's been developing in positive psychology over the last 4 or 5 years, is that they serve to strengthen us in the present and build us for the future. So in other words, laughter, humour, curiosity, or these examples of positive emotions are not actually luxuries anymore. They're fundamental to our well-being. So research studies show that they indicate safety, the opportunity to build and consolidate. Makes us more curious, more creative, more sociable. But some of the research is really, really quite interesting. Here's a list of positive emotions developed by Dr. Barbara Fredrickson at the University of North Carolina in the United States. And she has done a lot of research on these 10 positive emotions: love, awe, inspiration, amusement, pride, etc. Okay? So she's done a lot of experimental studies, and the findings are really quite extraordinary. For example, biological effects happen when we are experiencing positive emotions. It widens our peripheral vision. Or put it the other way, negative emotions physically closes down. And you can understand in terms of survival, in evolutionary terms, you close down to focus on the source of threat. But when you are enjoying yourself, laughter, loving, etc., the opposite happens. But just read through that list, because some of it is really quite extraordinary. Right down to the bottom where it prolongs your life. You live longer if you have more positive emotions in your life. So, handling complexity, being creative, it breaks down the feeling of them and us. It makes people more altruistic. Extraordinary, and all this these are the results of experimental studies where they've put people deliberately into positive emotions, and sometimes it's very simple. They just make them watch a happy film. Another group watches a sad film, and then they experimentally test whether they help someone who needs help. And the results are really quite dramatic. But there's an even more powerful effect. And this is interesting because it's very, very similar to the benefits of physical activity. That's why some of you might begin to think, well, this could be a priority for me as well. It returns us more quickly to normal pulse rates and bodily functioning after stress. So humour, which we've known for a long time, has a great effect on de-stressing people. But so do the other positive emotions that we talked about. And that helps undo the harmful effects of negative emotions, stress, fear, worry, etc. So it's a kind of, it helps us be good in the present, helps us recover from harmful effects of stress, but makes us stronger to resist the effects of these things in the future. So you can see how positive emotions are very fundamental to resilience. Because if you have positive emotions in your life, you're going to recover more quickly, you're going to be less vulnerable to the negative effects of stress and pressure. And this is called the broaden and build theory. And it's only been around for the last 5 or 6 years, so it's kind of quite revolutionary that we've begun to realize that positive emotion isn't just a luxury or a nice thing to have in our lives or our working environment. It's actually essential because it helps deal with the effects of stress. It quickens recovery time from sustained periods of stress, etc. So, as I say, it broadens our capabilities, we get psychological growth, improved well-being, we become more creative, and it's almost circular. The more you have it, it's like you spiral upwards. Now, clearly, we can't be experiencing positive emotions all the time. There are times when actually it's right to be angry, or you have no choice but to feel angry because you've been aggravated, or there's a setback, or there's a very worrying situation. So therefore, sometimes we have to feel the negative emotions. We have to feel the fear, the anxiety. But the research is now converging on the fact that actually there's a critical ratio that between the positive emotions in your life and the negative emotions in your life. So that if you have enough positive emotion, when you do feel anger, stress, anxiety, it doesn't have harmful effects on you. It's not very pleasant, but it doesn't harm you physically and it doesn't harm you psychologically. This is now a really fascinating, it's quite revolutionary because, and it's only really been developing the last 5 or 6 years. If you have a sufficient level of positive emotion in your life, you are then equipped to handle the stresses, the negatives, the angers, the fears, even the bereavements that we all experience in our lives when people close to us, our loved ones, pass away or become very, very ill. It becomes psychologically healthy and competent to handle it if we have enough positive emotion. And everything is pointing towards 3 to 1. Neuroscience, social studies, psychological studies, and even literature searches of history over time, novels, etc. Everything is converging that there is this ratio.